This is the brand new Google Pixel Watch 4, and I've been wearing and testing this watch out over the past couple of weeks to see what it's all about, both in terms of living my everyday life with it and in terms of taking it for a run and all of my fitness goals. The new Pixel Watch 4 brings a slew of new features to the table, and to be honest, it kind of shocked me in some ways as someone who primarily wears a dedicated sport watch like a Garmin here, but occasionally also wears something like an Apple Watch as well, because I really enjoy smartwatches too. Now, the Pixel Watch 4 sort of bridges the gap as kind of a hybrid of both worlds, being a pretty decent sport watch while also having all the smartwatch capabilities as something like an Apple Watch. So in this video today, I want to share my thoughts and opinions on this new device from Google, and I also want to dive a little bit deeper into things like GPS and heart rate accuracy, along with some real-world battery life testing I've done with this watch. To kick things off though, let's cover some of the basics to get that out of the way. Now, the pricing of the new Google Pixel Watch 4 is exactly the same as the Pixel Watch 3. There's two different sizes of this watch, one being the smaller 41mm form factor, starting at $349 for the Wi-Fi only version, and then there's the 45mm version I have here, which costs $399 to start and goes upwards from there. This watch comes in a few different colors as well. There's the all black color I have here, which I think looks pretty nice. There's also a moonstone color, a silver, and there's also a bunch of different band options to choose from as well. And before you get too excited about the Pixel Watch 4, you do have to keep in mind that this watch is only compatible with Android phones, no iPhones or anything like that. So if you're in the Apple ecosystem, this is not an option for you. Let's take a closer look at the hardware. The Pixel Watch 4 is a very simple device, as you can see here. It's a round watch. It's got two buttons on the side, one being the top button here, and one being a digital crown here, which is both a button and also a scroll wheel for scrolling around the user interface. What's interesting about this watch though is that Google says they've completely redesigned it from the ground up and completely changed how the watch is built. Now, if we take a look at the Google Pixel Watch 3 on the left here compared to the Pixel Watch 4, holding them side by side, they are very hard to tell apart. The design language is pretty much the same. The overall look and appearance and even the way they feel in your hand is pretty much identical. However, there have been some very subtle tweaks. For example, if I hold the watches on their side here, you can see the watch on the right is slightly rounder, like the edges fall off a little bit quicker, the radiuses are bigger. Thanks to that rounded design though, when you do have this watch on your wrist, it is incredibly comfortable. I have no issues sleeping with this or wearing it all day, and that's because of those nice rounded edges. When you're sleeping, there's no sharp edges to catch you when you brush by your face or something like that. And of course, this watch is still water resistant to 50 meters and does have an IP68 rating for dust and water resistance as well. So you're fine for taking this watch for a swim or taking a shower with it or running in the rain or whatever. You don't really have to worry about that. Now, under the hood on the Pixel Watch 4, they've changed a couple of things. First off, they've upgraded the vibration motor and the haptics to be a little bit stronger, and you really notice that when you're scrolling through a menu like this nice and slowly. I can't really portray this on camera, but it's a lot more tactile. You feel this little ticking vibration that happens in the background. Another change to the Pixel Watch 4 is that they've increased the loudness of the built-in speaker. This watch does have a speaker and microphone, so you can make and take phone calls, interact with Gemini, and a few other things, but the speaker itself did get much louder. This is a test of the built-in microphone and speaker on the Pixel Watch 4 and the audio quality. How does this sound? Is it loud enough? That's just a quick example of a voice memo I made on the watch itself, and I'm playing that back about 3 feet away from the microphone, and as you can hear, it sounds pretty good. Now, under the hood on the Pixel Watch 4, they've also improved the processing power on this watch. It now features the Snapdragon W5 Gen 2 processor, which is supposed to be a lot quicker and snappier and more power efficient as well. In terms of overall responsiveness and lag, it's pretty much instantaneous no matter what you're doing, and it feels a lot like you just have a smartphone on your wrist. To be fair though, even the Pixel Watch 3 was also very fast in that regard, so I didn't notice a huge improvement here, but it's also more power efficient, and that leads to battery life, which we'll talk about later in this video. With all that said, another major upgrade to the hardware of this watch is that this is the first consumer smartwatch that I know of that is now user repairable. That's right, if you damage your Pixel Watch 4, you can actually order parts online now and fix them yourself. The way this works is underneath the strap connection here, there's actually two small torque screws, and if you remove those, does on both sides, you'll be able to remove the display and the battery. Now, I personally have not tried to disassemble and reassemble this watch myself. Maybe I will in a later video if you care, but Google did tell me directly that it should only take like 10 to 15 minutes to do any of these procedures, and they're pretty simple for just about anyone to be able to do. And if you do need components, you'll be able to purchase those components directly from iFixit as the authorized partner when it comes to replacement parts. The cool thing about this whole process is that underneath the display, there's no adhesives or anything like that, so you don't need a heat gun or a suction cup or anything to take it apart. It's all sealed together with O-rings. And it's really cool to see that Google was able to still keep an IP68 rating while still being user repairable. It kind of proves that you can do this, and hopefully other manufacturers follow suit. Now, if I rotate the watch to the side here, you'll notice a couple of pins, and that's for the new charging cradle that's come out with the Pixel Watch 4, as you can see here. Now, this little charging cradle is actually really nice. It's got some weight to it. It's not super light, so it doesn't move around on your nightstand if you have it there. And it's also got really strong magnets on the inside. The way this works is when you have it on your nightstand or whatever, you simply put the watch on its side on there, and now the watch is charging. And what's great about this little cradle is that you can put it in either orientation. It can be facing the wire or facing away from the wire. It doesn't matter. It can go either way. And the nice thing about this cradle is when you are charging the watch, everything on the display of the watch will actually rotate its orientation to the side, so you can still read the time of day or see your notifications at a glance, even while it's charging. The only thing I would change about the charger for the Pixel Watch 4 is the integrated cable. I wish this was just a USB Type-C port so I could choose my own cable. Not a deal breaker, but something I noticed. Moving right along to the display of the Pixel Watch 4. This is probably one of the biggest upgrades to this watch. This new display they're calling the Actua 360 display, and it gets insanely bright at 3000 nits. With that level of brightness, I have no issues viewing this display even in direct sunlight. When I'm running, I can view my metrics at a glance. It's a really, really nice display and plenty bright for just about any situation. But what makes this display special is that they've actually curved the AMOLED display underneath the glass. So the glass over the top does have like a domed appearance to it, but underneath, the actual display itself also has a domed nature to it as well. And what that does is it makes the contents of the display look like it's almost printed on top of the glass rather than being underneath the glass. This is something that's really hard to show you on camera, but if you do look at it at really sharp angles, you can actually see that domed display underneath the glass. On top of that display technology, they've also increased the display size by 10% compared to the previous model, and that actually yields 16% smaller bezels around the perimeter of the display. Quick interruption, if you're finding this video helpful or fun in any way, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. While you're down there, check out the links in the description down below. Okay. Let's get back to the video. Moving right along to the next topic, and that is the user interface. Google has updated the user interface with something they're calling the Material 3 Expressive UI. This new user interface is pretty similar to the previous version. However, everything just sort of hugs the perimeter of the display now because this is a round watch. Previously, things would fall off the edges in these corners here. But now they've rounded everything so it sort of stays on the display and looks really nice. Another nice touch with the Material 3 Expressive UI is that whatever accent color you choose for your watch face, like for me I have this neon green color, sort of carries through with everything else throughout the user interface. From the watch face here, if I were to scroll down from the top, I go into these quick action settings here to do a variety of things. If I scroll up from the bottom, I go into my phone's notifications, and if I scroll left or right, I start to cycle through all of the widgets. Now these widgets are fully customizable, but for me, I have a quick start for an activity. I've got my step count, I've got my sleep here, my heart rate, I've got a quick contact for my wife here. I've got a Google Maps widget here so I can quickly dive into a full map view or just navigate to a recently stored place if I want to quickly. And then I've got my weather widget here and back to my watch face. If I click the scroll wheel, it dives me into my app list where I can see all of my pre-installed apps here, and I can view this in a list view or I can view this in a grid view as well, which is a lot harder to navigate in my opinion. And a single click of the top button here will bring me into recently accessed apps as well if I want to jump to something I was doing quickly. Something new on the Pixel Watch 4 though is that they've now added Google Gemini in place of the previous Google Assistant, and Gemini is just way better and way more powerful. You can access Google Gemini in a few different ways. The quickest way is just to hold the top button here for a second and then Gemini will pop up. What's really useful though is that you can actually pin Gemini commands to this widget here. You can pre-record them or select from some pre-configured ones. So for me, I have this button here to turn off my office lights up here, and I also have a button to turn on the air conditioner here in my office. But Gemini can do all kinds of things. For example, you can tell it to move your calendar meetings to a different day or different time. You can ask it how to navigate to places. You can ask it general questions, just like ChatGPT, for example. Who directed the movie Titanic?
James Cameron directed the movie Titanic.
Where's a good place to eat for lunch nearby?
Here are some good places to eat for lunch nearby.
Now, when it comes to apps on the Google Pixel Watch 4, you get a bunch pre-installed when you first buy the watch, and these are for all of the core things like Gmail, Google Messaging, Google Weather, Google Keep for notes. All of that stuff comes out of the box by default because this is a Google device. However, because this is a Wear OS device, you also have access to the Google Play Store where you can download literally hundreds, if not thousands of apps for your Google Watch as well. So you can see here, I've got Nike Run Club installed. I also have Spotify installed for music and podcasts, and a whole lot more. Speaking of Fitbit, let's dive deeper into that now. If I launch the Fitbit exercise app here, you can see it brings up my most recent workout, which is a run. But if I go down, I can also go into all exercises. And from here, there's a pretty lengthy list of activities you can do: aerobics, badminton, team sports for basketball, baseball, biking, cycling, boot camp, canoeing, and a whole lot more. And when it comes to running, there's also support for workouts as well. You can see here, I've got a tempo interval workout, I've got an open run with no goal, timed run with a 30-minute goal, and so on. Now down below here, if I press this plus button here, I can also make an entirely custom workout. So here I can choose to have a warm-up phase, I can add whatever kind of interval I'm doing here, and I can also have a cool-down phase as well, and then go out and execute that in real time. And when you're actually in a workout or a run, the Fitbit exercise app will display all of your key metrics, including your distance, your heart rate, and more. And these pages are fully customizable. And along the side of the page, you also get this real-time gauge for your heart rate or pace as well. And what's cool about this little gauge is that it actually turns different colors depending on which heart rate zone you're in, which makes it really easy to see when you're looking down at a glance during a workout. When it comes to working out, Google's also added a new AI auto recognition for activities. So if you do forget to start your watch during your next bike ride or run, the watch should be able to pick that up and identify which activity you were actually doing. I've done some testing on this, and the watch does pick up certain activities pretty reliably, and it is able to detect what's a walk versus what's a run. I have noticed though, it doesn't detect things like indoor running versus outdoor running. It doesn't know if you're on a treadmill or if you're just running outside. Now, of course, this is a Pixel Watch, and it does record a whole bunch of other health and wellness metrics as well. Things like your step count or calories burned, all of that stuff is here too. However, there's also some unique metrics in the Fitbit app as well. One being cardio load. Now, what's cool about cardio load is that this is sort of a form of training load that takes into account all of your recent workouts and exercises to let you know how much you've been doing lately and whether or not if you're doing too much or too little. But the cool thing about cardio load is that not only does it bring in like your recent workouts and activities that you recorded, but it also brings into account all of your general activities. So if you have a busy day on your feet, or you're out gardening all day or mowing the lawn or something like that, that also affects cardio load as well. Another handy metric here on the Pixel Watch 4 is the readiness score, which we did see before, but here it has been improved due to their algorithm changes as well. Now, the readiness score is basically a score from 0 to 100 to let you know how ready you are to take on the day ahead, and this is based on all of your previous activities and your previous night of sleep. And when it comes to sleep metrics, the Pixel Watch 4 also records that as well. As you can see here, I've got 7 hours and 24 minutes for last night, and if I scroll down, I also get my awake time, my REM sleep, my deep sleep, my light sleep, and that's all laid out on a graph as well. Google does have some more health and wellness features coming later this fall in the form of their AI Health Coach. This AI Health Coach is not available yet, and I have not been able to try it out, but it does look super interesting, and the whole idea is to help coach you through your recovery in your sleep more effectively. When this new feature rolls out, I will of course have a follow-up video, so stay tuned for that. Now that we've talked about Fitbit exercise and actually working out and stuff, let's talk about GPS or GNSS accuracy, because that's also pretty important. The new Pixel Watch 4 got a pretty big update in the form of multi-band GPS or GNSS. And what that means is when you're out on a run or a bike ride, this watch can track that run and triangulate your position using multiple satellites over 2 different frequencies for the best possible position or the most accurate position. To my knowledge, there is no setting in the watch to turn on or off multi-band GPS. It kind of does it automatically, and it's really only going to be useful for a certain subset of people who find themselves in a challenging GPS position. That could be a big city with buildings all around you. That could be in a canyon with rock walls all around you. That sort of situation is really where multiband comes in. I can generalize and say that the GPS accuracy coming out of the Google Pixel Watch 4 is actually looking pretty good so far. When I look at the tracks and really nitpick, they fall right in line with a lot of my other test devices. They look like they hug the roads pretty accurately, and when I do an out and back, the lines sort of stack up right on top of each other, which is sort of what we're looking for here. There are some areas where the track does drift here or there, but it's nothing major and nothing I'd complain about if I wasn't comparing it side by side. Now that we're on the topic of accuracy, let's flip this watch over and take a look at the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the watch here. Now this optical heart rate sensor, to my understanding, has not changed compared to the Pixel Watch 3. As you can see, they look nearly identical. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the heart rate accuracy I'm getting out of this watch on multiple different runs and different environments, from indoor running to outdoor running to hiking, it's all looking really good. For comparison, I wore an ECG sensor on my chest, which is typically the most accurate and what I use as a baseline, and the Pixel Watch 4 is yielding some really good results here. But of course, as I always say, I'm just a sample of one. I'm one person. These are just my results, so watch a bunch of different reviews and hopefully you can come up with a good conclusion on accuracy. With accuracy out of the way, let's talk battery life on the Pixel Watch 4, because this kind of surprised me. So on Google's spec sheet, they claim that you'll get up to 30 hours of typical use with the smaller model and 40 hours of typical use with the bigger model I have here. 40 hours of typical use is actually pretty solid for a watch like this, with built-in cellular and a Snapdragon processor and running all kinds of different apps. We're not going to get weeks of battery life with a watch like this, so a couple of days is kind of a win here. So I decided to do my own testing in terms of battery life. I left the watch in default settings. I had the always on display turned on. That's pretty important. And everything else was default. I didn't make any battery saver tweaks or anything like that. So on day 1, I charged the watch to 100%. And throughout that day, I just used it casually, and then I went on a 1-hour long run as well, which should have drained the battery more because it's a GPS activity. After that day, I went to sleep, and when I woke up in the morning, the watch had 50% of battery life remaining. That day, again, I used the watch pretty regularly, checking notifications and stuff. Then I went on a 45-minute long run later in the day, and again, I went to sleep. Now, while I was sleeping at 2:48 a.m. the next morning, according to my sleep stats, the watch died. Based on that activity, if I crunch the numbers, that's 39 hours and 48 minutes on a single charge, while also doing a couple of different runs during that time, which is pretty darn close to their claimed 40-hour spec. Of course, your mileage is going to vary depending on what you do with the watch, how bright the brightness setting is, how often you look at the display or interact with cellular. All those things affect battery life, but I think most people should be able to get through a couple of days before they need to charge the watch. And of course, if you do need more battery life than that, there are things you can do, like turning off the always on display or dropping into battery saver mode, which could get you over 72 hours of use. Now, when it comes to GPS on battery life, when you're actually out on a run or a bike ride or something like that, I was seeing a battery loss of between 9 and 10% per hour during those runs. Crunching the numbers there, that means up to around 10 hours of use on a single charge with the Pixel Watch 4 in a GPS activity. So that means you're probably not going to run your next 100-mile ultramarathon with this watch, but anything from full marathon to even like a 50-mile ultramarathon is probably fine, but I don't really think that's what this watch is designed for. Now that we've talked battery life though, let's talk about charging speed, because this watch charges insanely fast. Google added new fast charging charging features to this watch, and they say you can get up to 50% of battery life in just 20 minutes of charging with a full charge at 45 minutes. However, again, I did my own testing when it came to charging speed, and in 20 minutes using the supplied charger and a 30-watt brick, I gained 64% of battery life, which is actually higher than their spec sheet or their claims. What's really cool about the charging on the Pixel Watch 4 is that there's a little time until full timer on the screen during charging, which lets you know how long you need to leave it on there for before it's at 100%, and I find that incredibly useful. That faster charging is incredibly useful because, yeah, you only get a couple of days of use on a single charge, but you can top it off extremely quickly, particularly if you're taking a shower in the morning or you're commuting to work. You can just throw this thing on the charger and pretty much get to full by the time you get to work. The final feature I want to mention in this video is the new satellite SOS feature with the Pixel Watch 4. Essentially what this means is that if you're off the grid, you're outside of cell phone range, and you find yourself in an emergency situation, you can now call for help on the Pixel Watch 4 even if you're not in range of a cell phone tower with no signal. At the time of launch, this feature is only available in the USA for now. However, Google does state that they have a plan to roll it out to more regions as time goes on. And another piece of fine print is for this to work, you do need to have the LTE version of the Pixel Watch 4 because the satellite feature leverages the LTE antennas, which is only available, on the LTE model. The way this works is essentially when you're off grid and you're in an emergency, you dial 911 on the watch itself. And from there, if there's no connection established through LTE or from your nearby phone, it will automatically resort to a satellite connection. When the Pixel Watch 4 resorts to that satellite connection, it locks you out of all functions of the watch. You can't listen to Spotify while you're dialing 911, which makes sense, but it's something you should know. It goes into a low power state to conserve battery life while you're initiating that satellite communication. From there, once the connection is made, you'll be asked a series of questions on what your emergency is, if there's something wrong, and then you'll be connected with a two-way conversation to emergency response. Google says that this service will be free for 2 years, and then pricing may change after that. That's sort of to be determined. But as we've seen with other manufacturers, like even Google themselves and their phones, they never added pricing to this and it's still free. So I can only assume that'll be the case here as well. But yeah, time will tell. Now, of course, I have not dialed 911 on my watch because that would be a bad thing to do. But I have gone through the demo a few times and it's pretty slick. Like the animation to aim your wrist at the sky is really good and really intuitive. And the connection is established very quickly. When it comes to satellite messaging though, there are a couple of things missing. I really wish that Google implemented recreational messaging on top of SOS as well. That's what Apple did with the Apple Watch Ultra 3. You can send a text message, you can send your location when it's a non-emergency situation. However, on the Pixel Watch 4, for now, it's really only for those emergency live or die kind of things. That's the only time you're going to want to use this. Okay, that brings us to the end of this video where I want to talk final thoughts on the new Google Pixel Watch 4. Where does that leave us? This watch really surprised me. The hardware is great, the display is awesome, the experience is super polished with the user interface. The GPS and heart rate accuracy are right up there with some of the top contenders. And the FitBit integration brings a ton of health and wellness tools to the table, like the readiness score, the advanced sleep metrics, and these are features that typically you don't see on a watch like this without downloading third-party apps. You're getting that out of the box, which is really nice. And when it comes to the performance and the battery life on this watch, it's really surprising that I'm getting a full 2 days of use with the always-on display turned on, lots of horsepower, full-blown apps. The battery life has been pretty good as well. Sure, I'd love a week of battery life, but I kind of understand the limited battery life on a watch like the Pixel Watch 4. And of course, that satellite SOS feature, while it's something I'll probably never use, is good peace of mind to have if I am in the backcountry, my phone dies, and this is my last resort. At least there's something available. Ultimately, I hate to word it like this, but I feel like the Pixel Watch 4 is sort of like the Apple Watch equivalent for Android users. And I know a lot of you Android users are going to hate that analogy, but yeah, I said it. I say that as a compliment though, because Apple is known for their ecosystem and tying everything together seamlessly, and the Pixel Watch 4 does that as well. It's sort of like an extension of your phone. You've got all of your apps on there, you've got your Gmail and your messaging, and you've got cellular, and it's all here on your wrist. The only thing I wish Google did with the Pixel Watch 4 release was added an Ultra version with more battery life, a bigger display, and a more rugged build. Maybe next year. At the end of the day, if you're in the Google ecosystem and you are an Android user and you're looking for a full-blown smartwatch with cellular on board, this is a really great option, and I think the price is fair. On the other hand, at this price point, there are a lot of other options out there. So if you are looking for more of a sport watch and less of a smartwatch, that's where more doors are open from brands like Garmin, Coros, Polar, or Suunto. With those other options, you'll get a lot more sport features and way longer battery life, but you'll sacrifice some of the fun to have smartwatch features like full app support and cellular on board, and that's really up to you to decide. And hopefully this video and the hundreds of other videos I've published on this channel help you make that decision. I hope. That's why I do this. In either case, that's the end of this video. Hopefully you found it useful. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And after you do that, as always, check out the video description down below where you can head over and buy your very own Google Pixel Watch 4 or any other watch I talked about in this video. After you do that, don't forget to check out the other links to my other social media accounts like my Instagram or my podcast, and check out my website over at chasethesummit.com where you can pick up some sweet merch. And with that, we've reached the end, I think. I probably missed something. I always do. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.